Welcome back to sunny Alpha Centauri, where the temperature is a balmy 12 degrees and the plant life is swarming. CO2, bit of a greenhouse effect, that's all the trees wanted, take over the planet. Okay, crushing lull in the southeast. He seems to have set up shop in this archipelago and given us a bit of an open invitation to send our navy down there. Make use of it, bashing him. Marine Agency is a level 9 city. Nice work, Lau. So the way he's set them out here, I can capture a string of little UNs here. Refuge, Authority, Commission. I can bring down some planes and that'll put me in range of most of Lao land. Peacekeeper territory. But down the tail end of it there's also some Spartan territory, so that'll help put me in a position to surround the Spartans, which I see as an end game position in this scenario. Crush the eastern powers here, green and pale blue, then swing west and crush Yang and have the Spartans surrounded, at which point it might be a good time to turn on my good friend Zach and steal the last of his techs and squish him, and then have a mighty battle between the two military powers of the game, the Believers and the Spartans. We'll see if my faith is stronger than their preparations. $203 income a turn. It's perfectly respectable from a non-energy sort of empire. Energy isn't my main focus, production is, so 200 a turn's fine. Plenty of bribe fodder. Commerce rates doubled. All my enemies seem to be voting for it, for the most part. I don't see why any commerce rates should be doubled. Gang planes. West Coast interceptors. I need to remember, staple. Why build a building that takes energy, steals my energy, like rec centers and hologram what's-its do? Great energy thieves. Cutting into my cash flow and research. Why would I build them when I can just press a button? Oh, time to intercept. What have we got here? Ex-missile penetrator of the Spartans. It's a veteran Spartan. What an embarrassing Spartan you make. 18 to 1. Spartan who doesn't know how to dogfight. This is terrible. I was heading down to knock out this Believer plane under fallow time, but bumped into a Spartan on the way. So fallow time is nice and empty. Gaia's landing is gone. Nessus Shining has a bullseye painted on its face. And Garden of the Deep is my next airbase. Ocean cities make great air bases because you don't have army problems rocking up, it just isolates them nicely. Whereas fallow time I'm going to capture just for the wonders, and it'll also give me a chunk of territory over here. Probably kick me over into the top of the territory who's who. And this is Operation Sneak a Pod around the peninsula. That's the next link in the chain. It goes Worm Slayer, Deirdre's Fishery, Garden of the Deep, which I've yet to capture, and then I'll drop that on the far side, and that'll be another stepping stone that my air power can be channeled down, possibly within range of the Spartans. Yes, I need to send troops to the mainland here because cities are now a bit too expensive for me to buy, and this city's got wonders in it, so that's very expensive. So instead of bribing it, I've just been bombing fallow time, and I'll drop some units off, swing in and grab it, take it over. They claim to 3 wonders, including the weather paradigm. It's always handy to have 18-7. Smasheroo. So, Lal's got some aircraft, some bomber type aircraft flying around. Yes, there we go. I commission Flap Defender in it. Give it a preemptive stapling to keep them in line, to show them how their new lives are going to work. I have got a few captured cities stockpiling energy, which helps a little. 6-5, what a tough guy. Some experienced probe team battling going on. My probe team's at top of the range, so Lal's doing well. Seem to have lost my status as the wealthiest temporarily. Yang has the territory, but seem to be at the top of the rest of the charts. The Spartans have a decent number of bases. I'm looking forward to having some sort of endgame battle with the Spartans. I need to build more bases in the west, to the west of me. Reach out towards the Spartans from that direction. Lal's determined not to die. Oh, look at that chart drop. There's been a readjustment in the chart. I hit the top of the chart and I had to recalibrate all charts so that the difference in my power and the next best guys can actually be charted. That's how squished they're getting. Squishy, squishy. So green is boxed in by Lal and Santiago, so I should be able to eliminate the Gaians and pop my good friend Deirdre into a little sphere of punishment. And go and zap her every now and again when I'm bored. And I'll annex their turf because they've sort of got a half decent, filled with fungus, but half decent patch of dirt over there. I'll annex Yang's land, but everyone else's land I can mostly do without. Brother Lal has gone and put a city deep in the southern hemisphere on a little island. Some kind of penal colony down in the south. All the convicts can go and enjoy some nice beaches. Planes. The motto of my Air Force is more planes. Need at least a dozen good bombers to really get the job done. Three dozen is about ideal for world domination. You can get a lot done per turn with 3 dozen bombers. Move the production with the little crawler from one place to another. I haven't particularly maxed out these cities that are making the crawlers. You can put a crawler or two right next to each city, right on the roads between the cities. Slurp out the minerals, every city's got +4. Kicks the production of your crawlers up a notch. But I'm being lazy about instituting it in order to keep the turns fast. And because I don't really need it.
Production complete.
As is evident, I'm going to give them a squishing as it is. Don't need to tweak everything to the very edge of efficiency, unfortunately. My old Lal and his battleships getting beaten up by my little hovercrafts. My elite hovercrafts. Elite is the key. Makes a serious difference. But you don't have to be Spartans to have elite troops. UN headquarters just lost some of its shine. My goodness. They just lost 4 population. That's very naughty of me. That's a lot of dead peacekeepers. Oh dear. It's not their day at all. It's not Peacekeeper Day. Oh well. Not sure that the headquarters is going to survive. Information agency, that looks like a bit of a superfluous base to me. Not sure that I need that. Maybe I do. It's an air base. We shall see. The thing is, you don't need to be Morgan to have a decent energy income.
Request confirmation.
You don't need to be the Spartans to have elite troops. You don't need to be the university to be the top of the who's who in tech. A lot of these things can be sorted out other ways. I'm not trying particularly hard to have energy. I've probably got a higher energy income than all of my opposition, I would say. Worm planes. Worm planes for the win. That worm plane was not scratched. Not a scratch. 50% bonus on attacking worms. Usually it's wild worms turning up on your coastline ready to disgorge some ungodly worm pile of spaghetti on your coast. But in this particular case it was the Gaians using it as a transport and trying to move their little Gaian troopers. The little Gaian troopers of we don't have much morale. I should have let them arrive. Give my local troops some targets to fire at. Could have also bribed them, but they're probably inferior troops. Certainly in the morale department, they're inferior troops. So air power versus Deirdre. Not a lot of Deirdre advantages in air power. Airworms are perfectly reasonable, and they hover. They're kind of sweet, but the technology to make them is ages off, and you don't tend to have wild ones just turning up and getting captured by you. It's just not a common occurrence. Again, it's like a later in the game thing when the locusts come out. It's later in the game thing when you get locust tech. Meanwhile, all these other warmongers in the game, as soon as they get jets and missiles, are running amok like this. And the Gaian Air Force has a minus to morale. It's not an ideal spot to be in. Gaians can definitely crush it on the ground. But it's such a themed, psionic themed attacks. It's very easy to counter. There's lots of toys that counter it. In Crossfire, you get a lot more toys to play with. If you're Gaian, you get the artillery, worm, and all the other shiny toys, but there's just as many extra defensive toys for everyone else. You get all the armour that has built-in psionic defense, etc. It sort of evens out, and it just comes down to the fact that if you know your neighbour is going to mount a psionic offense against you, it's very easy to prepare a psionic defense that's very successful and can squish it. It's just that the computer's too dumb to do that. So when you're fighting the computer as Gaians, you're just crushing it because they don't know what they're doing. They don't look at you, spot you as a worm threat and prepare. Certainly not to the degree a fiendish human being will. Human players just never know what they're up to. So if there were human players in this game, I would be having there'd be a lot more troops closer to home, hovering in a cloud around my home territory in a paranoid way. And there would probably just be the one tentacle at the moment extending out to one or two enemies that are a problem. I'd be focusing just on green or just on Lal probably even. Trying to have one enemy at a time. With the intense rivalry setting that makes the AI aggressive, it's kind of difficult to have one enemy at a time, but I can't say I do my best because I definitely make no effort to
Production complete.
avoid trouble.
Complete.
Miriam is just all about making trouble.
Production complete.
It's just great thing about playing Miriam is it's just your chance to do what she'll always do to you if you pick any other faction. It's be a giant pain in the butt. Hopefully not a giant pain in the butt, hopefully a small, resource-starved pain in the butt. Because you don't want angry Gaians, believers, not with their believing bonus. It's an angry, angry thing. Elite troops with a believing bonus. Splendid. Power rating systems of the factions in this game. I've seen power ratings that put Morgan and Lal high up in the powerhouse stakes and put the Spartans and Miriam down the bottom on the mistaken belief that energy supply is the backbone of a good economy and gross income 247 a turn. I certainly don't have anything against a bit of energy income, but mineral production is really where it's at. A military faction with masses of production can just do amazing things. It's good for Miriam to have a steady flow of cash though, because she's a bit of a bribery machine. One former and 2 population, but they've still got those precious, precious secret projects that I want to steal. So obviously the plan is to get my plasma garrison here into fallow time by having my bombers knock out all its defences so that he can just walk in, and then those projects shall be mine, followed by evil cackle. Nice and empty. I've got to do the same thing with Garden of the Deep, empty it with bombers, snatch it with a boat, and then it becomes an airbase from which to hit Autumn Grove, Song of Planet, and Greenhouse Gate, and even Dreams of Green. I think Lily of the Valley is pretty easily in range too. I can probably wipe the Gaians out if I capture Garden of the Deep and use it as an airbase. It's in a very central location for the Gaian Empire. ECM Silk Steel garrisons, you see, I wouldn't be fighting those. Human being wouldn't build ECM troops in a sea base where speeders are never going to attack it. ECM garrisons are a dumb idea, and paying money to upgrade to them for free is super dumb. Don't do that. You want anti-worm garrisons early if you're spending extra money on your garrisons, that it's anti-worm, and then once you've got anti-air, you upgrade to anti-air. You'd have to be in some sort of Kursk level biggest tank battle in history to be thinking about building ECM troopers. Wow, look at those odds. Those Gaian worms, those awesome killer worms, weaponry of the Gaians. Please don't attack me with your fiendish worms. And ridiculous odds of winning. Elite troops, believer bonus. I think the maths on elite troops is 62% or 62.5% or something like that. Bonus for being elite. And the believer bonus is 25 I think. So all in all, massive. All in all, it's like 80 odd % upgrade just to my firepower just from that. And of course, if you're attacking with gas, there's an extra 50%. So it ends up being 140% more or something. So 6 attack becomes like 13, 14, becomes like a plasma shard kind of weapon, is the thing. It's great to tack up to a plasma shard, but I've got missiles, but they're hitting as hard as plasma shard if I'm using gas. And gas is of course pure evil, but this is the game of pure evil. Miriam conquesting the world and treating them like humans, treating them like actual players rather than the soft squishy AIs that they are. Poor chumps. This doesn't really play online. It plays on a LAN. If you've got Hamachi or some kind of deal like that, you can extend that into an internet game, but chances are you won't be playing this game against a stranger, so it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be multiplaying this with some strange psychos you don't know, like some of the other civs. You certainly can. That tank missed the boat. I told him to get on that boat, but he'd obviously run out of moves and wasn't interested. And so I sent the boat off without him, as is a typical military occurrence.
Request confirmation.
Not doing any labs, but I'll buy that if I have to slam into labs mode. How many bombers? 20? Sounds like we're on the way. There'll be more bombing in the next video, can be assured.